What's up guys, my name is Axmist, and in this video I'm gonna show you how to script your own pet system in Roblox. So you have your pet menu, you have your own custom pets, and you click equip and it pops up above your shoulder like so and follows you around. And yeah, I'm gonna make a part 2 of this video, so please leave a like and consider subscribing as it helps out a lot. And yeah, let's get right into the video. So the first thing that we're gonna do is to make the pets. So I'm just gonna start off by making a really basic one. So I'm just gonna set in the size, and then I'm gonna make it a model by doing Ctrl-G, and then I'm gonna name the model pet or something like that. Not too creative, I know. And then we're gonna set, this is the important part, right? You're gonna set the primary part to the part, the main part of which you can see it as the body of the pet, because that's what's gonna be in the center of the entire pet's position. And then you want to make sure that all of the parts are maskless and unanchored. And I would say I would turn off can collide. I strongly recommend it, but it's up to you. And then if you want to add more parts, you can do something like this. So you have another part right here, right? And you want to attach it to this part right here. So if you have a part something like that and you want to attach it to this part, the only thing you have to do is go into here, model, and then click on that little drop bar thing, and then click weld, and then click on that part, or it should already be selected, and then click on the main part, and then you will see this kind of green thing if you have show welds on. And then you just put it inside of the pet and make sure that this part is also maskless, and I recommend can collide is off, and of course anchor must be off. And there we go, we have our pet. Also, the way it's going to be facing is the front surface. So if you want to check what part of the face is the actual front surface, you can do like so. You go into model and you click surface, and you just change it to anything else than what it is, for example glue. And then you're actually gonna find this menu down here with surfaces, and it's gonna disappear when you set it back to smooth, but then you can see that the front surface is actually the one we selected. But if we would have accidentally selected this one, or accidentally, we wouldn't know. But then we could just click on front surface and mark it or something, and then we know that the pet's gonna be facing that way. I'm actually going to do like so. We're going to open up the toolbox, and we're gonna search for, oh wait, I still have the surface thing on. There we go. I'm just gonna search for like pet face or something like that, so I can show you how it's gonna look. And we can select this thing and we can put it inside of this part. So there we go. And this is actually another way you can check what's the front surface. You can select this, you select front, and then it's gonna go to whatever the front surface is. But here's our pet. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but it's gonna work. Make sure the primary part is set to the main body part. I can actually rename that body so you can see that it's correct. And then you're gonna make a folder inside of replicated storage, and you're gonna name it pets. Make sure you name it exactly pets, and then you put it inside of there. You can name this pet anything, but actually I'm just gonna name it pet 1 because I'm not too creative with those things. And yeah, that's the pets done. Of course you can add more later, but for now we're gonna move on to the next thing. So the next thing we're gonna do is to actually make the GUI. So the first thing you're gonna do is to insert a screen GUI into starter GUI, add a frame into this one, and then I'm actually gonna size it. Make sure you use scale, or I recommend you scale it so it scales to the screen. That just makes it work on mobile and such. I'm gonna show you how it works in just a bit. But if we do something like that and so, you can see that if we change the device, it's still scaled properly. So yeah, and then you want to add I would add a scrolling frame because it just makes more makes room for more space because you can scroll down and stuff. And then just put the scales to 1:1 because this thing, we're only gonna use this frame to put the exit button onto this menu. And then you're gonna add a UI grid layout, and you're gonna make your pet button. Now, making a pet button, you have to include a few things: the pet name, the pet equip button, and the string value, which is gonna be the pet's name. So after you're done, this is an example of how it could look. So you have your frame right here. This frame, the name of this frame doesn't matter, it could be anything, but I'm just gonna name it pet because it's gonna be a pet button or a pet frame for the pet button. So you wanna have a string value, so you just click the plus and search string value, and you're gonna name it pet index. Make sure it's a capital I and a capital P. Just make sure it's absolutely correct, and then the value of this thing, the value of this thing is gonna be what the pet name is gonna be. So in my case, it's actually supposed to be pet1 because this button is gonna summon that pet. So yeah, you change the value to one of the pet's names and you're good to go. Then here on the equip button, make sure it has the correct name. As I said earlier, it's gonna be important in basically every section of this entire script, so, or this entire pet system. So this equip button, the only thing that's like really important is the button name, and make sure it's a text button and not a text box or something like that. It has to be a text button. And then here we have a pet name. Make sure it's named exactly pet name, and it's supposed to be a text label. And then when you're done with that, you can change the menu up so it looks a bit better, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But then we're actually gonna start with the first script. So the first script we're gonna do is gonna be the actual pet handler. So it's gonna be the thing that actually like equips and unequips the pets. So we're gonna start off by making a variable for the replicated storage. So local replicated storage is equal to game get service replicated storage. Then we're gonna do local events is equal to replicated storage events, and then we're actually gonna make a folder in replicated storage and call it events. And then we're gonna make an event into that folder, and we're gonna call it pet create. That event is gonna create the actual pet, and it's a remote event because we want to create it on the server, so everyone else can see your pet. And then we're gonna do local pets is equal to replicated storage as pet, so we have a variable for that folder too. And sorry. And then we're gonna make a variable for the pet create event, so local pet create is equal to events pet create. And then we're gonna make a variable for this frame right here. I'm gonna call it pet frame because it's the frame which is gonna hold all of the pets. So pet frame is equal to script.parent, and as you can see, this script, I'm gonna rename it pet handler, is gonna be inside of this frame, which we can call the pet frame because that's this frame. And then we're done with all of the basic variables. Now we're actually gonna jump straight into the functions. So we're gonna do function pet config, something like that. And then we're gonna include a parameter here, call it button. The first variable we're gonna do is to make the actual, and we can do frame, the frame for the pet, sure, is equal to button dot parent. Now this doesn't really make sense yet, but I'm scripting it from the top to down, so it's gonna make sense in just a bit. I'm gonna explain it right after this code. Then we're gonna do local pet index is equal to frame find first child pet index. So we're finding the frame, and the frame is gonna be one of these things, and the pet index is inside of that frame, right? So the frame wait for find for child pet index, and the button is the button that was clicked, so the pet that's gonna be equipped or unequipped depending on if we already have the pet out. So yeah, that's how that works. Then we're gonna search for the pet if we actually can find the pet. So local pets, if pets the pet index dot value, then the pet value is gonna be the pet name, as I showed you guys earlier. So in this case it's B, because that's what I used when I actually scripted this entire thing, but we're gonna have it at pet1, of course, or whatever your pet name is, the pet you wanna summon. So then in here you wanna fire the pet create event, and you're gonna fire server pet index dot value. So we fire the pet name so we can actually summon it, and that's this function done. Then you want to drop a line, and you're gonna make the actual pet create on client event. Now this event, so we're gonna do pet create on client event connect function, and in these brackets we're gonna type index. So what this entire function is gonna do is it's gonna display when we have equipped our pet. So it's gonna say equipped or equip depending on if we had the pet out. That's only a visual part of the script. I strongly recommend you still do it, but you could technically skip past this this thing, but I wouldn't if I were following this tutorial. But yeah, anyway, so we're gonna start off by a loop. We're gonna do pet frame get descendants. Now I maybe typed that a bit fast, but this is a classic loop. We're looping through the pet frame descendants. So the pet frame is this thing right here, right? So we're getting all of the descendants, and the descendants are the children and the children of the children, which are inside of the thing we're looping. So we're looping through all of these items or instances, and then we're gonna type if v is a string value, and v in this case is the actual instance we're looping through, so it's going to go through all of them, and then eventually one is going to be the string value. So if it's that instance, we're going to do, it's going to pass this if statement. So after that we're going to type local pet, so now we're specifying the frame once again like we did up here. So local frame is equal to v the parent, because it's the parent of a string value is always going to be the pet frame in this case. So we're going to make a variable for the equip button, because we're going to change the text of the equip button in this function, like as I explained earlier. So local equip button is equal to frame find first child, so we're finding the actual equip button. There we go. And then we're gonna set all of the equip button's text to equip, because this is gonna loop through, if we had two of these, it's gonna loop through this one too, of course. So we're setting all of the pet buttons, the pet buttons text to, so we're setting all of the pet buttons text to equip. So yeah, and then by the way, how they're getting sorted like this, that's because we have an UI grid layout. You can configure this if you want to. I would change it to scaling. I don't know, I haven't done it yet, but I'm definitely gonna do it later. But yeah. Next thing you wanna do in this tutorial is make another if statement, and it's gonna be if dot value is equal to toString index. Then so the index here, I guess I haven't explained that yet, that's the pet that's equipped. This thing could be equal to nil, so then no equip button text would be set to equipped. But it's checking if the and why I have done toString is because the index is going to be an instance, but if it's going to be nil, you can't do index.name, because if it's nil, it's not an instance. So we do toString used to avoid bugs. If you have watched some other videos, you know that I use toString quite often actually. But then you just want to finish this whole thing off with doing a equip button dot text is equal to equip. Now you can have this custom, like you have equipped this pet or something like that, but I'm just gonna have it set to equipped. So that's this function, both of these functions entirely done. Then there is one more function left, but it's quite a simple one. We're doing a classic loop, and this entire thing is only gonna set the event for these buttons. I'm gonna show you in a bit, or not event, function, for whenever these buttons are clicked. So we're gonna do for IV in pairs. We're gonna do pet frame, get descendants like we did up here. Then we're gonna do if v is a text button, so we're checking if it's actually the equip button. Then if it is the equip button, we're gonna do v.activated, which is if the button is pressed. Then connect function, and here we're just gonna do pet config and v. So we're gonna connect this function with the button, and as you can see, the variable here is named button, and this v right here is a text button because that's the instance that we're looping through. So we're firing pet config with the actual button. So now we have connected that function to whenever a button is activated. So that's all good and done. And then we're gonna do one last thing here, and that is actually setting each pet name to its pet index name. This is actually not necessary. You could do it manually, but I just like automating things because that's the magic of scripting. You can do basically anything, so I just made it automatic, so it's easier to add more pets. And yeah, we're gonna make a if statement. If name is equal to pet name, then if we're checking something, you should have two equal signs. You're supposed to have two equal signs, otherwise it's not checking something, it's setting it. I've explained that in my beginner tutorial videos. But then we're gonna do local frame is equal to v.parent. So the parent of the pet name is, the pet frame, where we have named it pet here because, and when I say pet frame, don't get confused with this thing. I mean the frame of the actual pet, so I mean that thing. This is just the entire frame. So then we're gonna make another variable, local pet index, and this is just gonna locate our actual pet index. Oh wait, we're not gonna do pet frame, we're gonna do frame. So find for child pet index. So we're finding the pet index, and the value of it is the pet name. So we're gonna change the pet name, the text, which is this text label right here. So the pet name the v, because the v is the pet name, as you can see. V.text is equal to pet index value. So when I say the v is equal to the pet name, that's because we're filtering out every other instance that is not named pet name, and that leaves us with the only instances that are named pet frame, and the only instance that has the name pet frame in this case is the actual text label, which is displaying the pet's name. So that's how that works. And now this thing is fully done. The pet handler is done, and now we're gonna move on to the events. So the next script we're gonna do is the actual server script for summoning the pet. Now this script is gonna contain a lot of not so advanced scripting things, so I'm gonna script them a bit faster just to make this video not too long. I'm gonna name this script to something like pet create script, and we're gonna erase that default code, and we're gonna type local rs is equal to game get service replicated storage, so we get that classic variable. We're gonna make another variable for the events, and we're gonna make another variable for the pets, so local pets is equal to rs pets, and then we're gonna make a variable for the pet create event. So we're gonna do local pet create is equal to events dot pet create, so as you can see right there, that's that event. Remote event, make sure it's a remote event and not like a bindable event or something like that. Then you're going to do function create pet. This function is going to be the function that creates the pet, of course. So we're going to include two parameters here. We're going to include the player and the index. The index is, as you saw right here when we were firing the event up here, it's the pet index.value, and the pet index.value is the pet's name. So we're going to use this index to find the pet we're looking for. The first thing we're going to do in this function is a variable for the character. So we're going to do local character is equal to player.character, and then if the character hasn't reloaded in yet or something, or some bug or something happens, we're going to do or character added wait. That's just a safer way of getting a variable of the character, of the player character. Then we're gonna set up a little bit of code that in case it finds an attachment, which we're gonna create later, inside, if it finds a duplicate of an attachment inside of the character that we're gonna create later, then it's gonna remove it. So if character primary part find for child attachment, then gonna just copy this and do destroy, so it's gonna destroy it, the attachment. Then we're gonna make a variable for the pet, so local pet is equal to pets, and then here we're gonna put the index, so we index the pets inside of this folder and clone. So this variable is the actual pet that's gonna be following us around, and then we're gonna make two very identical variables. So the first one is going to be local attach a is equal to instance.new attachment, and the attach a that parent is going to be equal to pet dot primary part. Then we're going to duplicate this attachment, and we're just going to change the a to a b because it's going to be another one, and then the parent is actually going to be the character, that primary part. That's why we're checking if there is an attachment up here so we can delete it, because we don't want it to create two of it when we resummon a pet. And then before we set the parent, we're actually going to set the position. So attach B, of course. Attach B that position is going to be equal to character. It's going to be vector free, free, and 0. So this is actually just going to make it so that the pet is like offset of the character, so it's like above the shoulder. That's really all it does. So then we're done with the actual attachments. And yes, if you want to, you can do this instead. You set the instance parent right there. I'm just gonna do it like so because it's easier to understand. But yeah, then we're gonna make a variable for something called align position, which is gonna actually position the pet using these attachments. So align position is gonna be equal to instance.new align position, and the align position dot attachment 0 is going to be equal to attach A, and the align position attachment 1 is going to be equal to attachment B. And then you're done with that. You're gonna basically just copy this thing, and you're gonna change align position to align orientation. So that's gonna be in control of the actual rotation of the pet, and then you're just gonna replace this align orientation with, replace align position with align orientation. And then you're gonna do attachment 1 is equal to attach A, and attachment 1, yeah. Then down here we're gonna set the actual max torque and the max force of the align position and align orientation. So align position dot max force is going to be equal to 30,000. The align orientation dot max torque, like so, is gonna be equal to 30,000 too. And then we're gonna set the parent of the align position and align orientation. So you can do align position dot parent is gonna be equal to the pet dot primary part, and we're gonna do the exact same thing with the align orientation. So we're just gonna copy this and paste it like so, and there we go. We're actually done with the entire positioning of the pet, and that is the part that I was talking about earlier. It's not that advanced scripting. It's just a way of positioning and rotating the pet. And then we're gonna set the pet primary part C frame. So we're gonna do pet set primary part C frame, and the C frame is gonna be character the primary part a primary part what am I doing? C frame. There we go. I'm sorry for mistyping that a couple of times, but that's what it's supposed to look like. And then we're gonna set the pet the parent to the workspace, and we're gonna actually make this is for a bit later on, or we're actually done with this function after we've done this, but we're gonna do a table, an empty table, call it tab, have it right up here, have it an empty array, and then we're gonna set tab dot player. So we do that. Tab player is gonna be equal to pet, and that's what we're actually gonna be using down here to find out what pet is currently equipped. So then we're done with this entire function, and you can close it down or whatever you like, because this function is completely done. Now we're gonna move on to the next one, and this one is way shorter. So the next thing we're going to do is to make an server event for whenever the pet create event is fired. So we're gonna do pet create.on server event connect function, and then in those brackets we're gonna type player comma index. So these two parameters, the first one is the actual player. It's a default parameter whenever an event is fired from the client to the player, because there's always going to be a player that fired the event, so that's why it's a default parameter. And the index is a custom one, and we have the index in this case is equal to pet index value, which is the pet's name, So then in this text, in this function, we're actually going to determine if the player wants to remove a pet or add a pet. So we're going to do if not tab the player, then we're gonna call this function, and we're gonna create a pet, and we're in these two brackets we're of course gonna include the two parameters player index, so we have them right there. And then we're going to do else. So wait, we're going to do else right there, and then we're going to do local previous pet. I'm just going to call it prev pet. The variable is equal to toString index, or actually no, toString tab the player. And why we're doing a variable is because we're actually gonna reset this now. So we're going to do tab player destroy, so we're destroying the pet, and because clearly tab the player is equal to something, because this is an else of this statement. So if this statement was false, that means the tab the player is equal to something. And yeah, so we're actually removing the tab player. This is like an index of the table. I have gone over this in my scripting tutorial videos, so yeah, you can watch those if you wanna, or I'm pretty sure I've gone over it, but yeah, you can watch those too. But yeah, so we're going to tab the player is equal to nil, so we have just completely reset it. And then we're going to do if pet is not equal to index, then create pet player and the index. And why we're doing this is because if the index is not equal to the previous pet, that means we're clicking equip on another pet, so we're not unequipping the same pet, and that means that it's supposed to summon the pet and not remove the pet, or it's supposed to remove the pet, but it's also summoning one, which if we were just unequipping a pet, so we're just clicking unequip on the same pet we already have out, the prev pet is going to be equal to the index, and it's not going to create a new pet, because that would just make it so you wouldn't be able to unequip pets, and that would be really annoying. So then the last thing of this entire script is going to be pet create fire client player, and then tab player. That's this entire script done. And what this does is that it updates, because here we have the on client event, it updates the equipped text on each button. So that's the two major script codes done. We can actually test it out now if we want to. So I'm just gonna do that right now. So if we hit play, don't worry about these errors. And then if we hit play, if we hit equip, we have actually made an error. And I know what's the error. We have actually made a capital R right there. That's just an example of how important it is to actually type the correct thing. So then we have now fixed that, and hopefully we don't run into another issue. And we have run into the exact same type of issue, and now yeah, it wasn't a capital B right there. It's supposed to be. So you see, it's making quite an amount of these common issues myself, but now it finally works. So yeah, I can't really show you guys how it looks like it clean, because this thing is in the way, and that moves us to our next point in this script, which is doing the actual close and open buttons. So you design your own button, make sure the parent of the button is this frame, which is the parent of the pet frame, and then after you have designed that button, design that button, and I'm just gonna skip past me designing it because that's gonna take some time. So there we go, I have my button done, but the coding is not done, and we actually have to make one other button, which is the button that's gonna open the menu. So the parent of that button is gonna be the screen GUI. So you just make your frame and make sure that you have a text button. I mean, not frame, you're not supposed to make a frame. Make your text button, and then configure it however you like, design it however you like. I'm gonna skip past me designing mine too because that's gonna take some time. And there we go, I have both of my buttons designed, and now we're gonna start the scripting. This script is actually gonna be really easy, really simple, because well, it's only gonna open and close a menu. So we're gonna make a local script inside of this exit button. I've called it exit button. It doesn't really matter what you call these two buttons. Just make sure that this button is a parent of a child of the screen GUI, and this button is a child of this script is a child of this button, which is a child of this frame, which is a child of this screen GUI. So when you have made sure that everything is correct, you're gonna do local exit button is equal to script.parent, and then local screen GUI is equal to exit button dot parent. Then we're going to do local pets button, which is this button right here. Now that button, actually name it to precisely pets button, because we're going to use find for child to find it, so it's important that it's the correct name. Or if you don't want to name it pets button, you can just whatever its name is supposed to be in these brackets. And actually I mistyped something here. It's supposed to be like that, and then you're gonna do inside of these brackets you're gonna do pets button. So there you go, now you have a variable for your pets button. Make sure that this name is the same name that you have in there, and then you're good to go. Then you want to make the actual exit button, so you're gonna do exit button dot parent is visible is equal to false. You want to make it invisible by the start, because you want this button to be visible and not this menu at the start, because it just doesn't really make sense to have an already open menu when you start up the game. So when you have done that, you're going to do exit button that activated connect function. So whenever someone activates the button, clicks on the button, this function is going to run. Exit button that parent that visible is equal to false, and the pets button, whenever you click the exit button on the menu, is the visible is going to be equal to true. And then we're gonna copy this entire function, and we're gonna replace exit button with pets button, and we're just gonna do the same thing but reversed. So the exit button dot parent is visible is gonna be equal to true, and the pets button dot visible is gonna be equal to false. And there you have it. So that is gonna be everything for the entire thing. So now if we hit play, we can actually test this out. And if we hit pets, this menu pops up, and if we hit equip, then we can close this down. You see we have our fancy looking pet. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but that's our pet. And yeah, there's one more thing I'm going to show you, and that's how to add more pets, but that's really simple, so I'm just going to go over it real quick. So you make your next pet. I made this little bee, and then you put the bee inside of this pets folder, and you can put the GUI on right now because you're gonna need it. You go into the pets frame, you duplicate this thing, and then you change the pet index to B. And that's everything. That's how easy it is. Make sure you have the primary part correct, and all of the parts have a maskless on, unanchored off, can collide off, and they're all welded together. And then you have another pet in your game, and it's working properly. So if I have it like that, click equip, it changed the pet like so. If we click equip again, it disappears, and it's all working. Now if you run into any errors, I have a debugging video which you can check out. It should be pretty easy to find on my channel because I don't have that many uploads compared to some other YouTubers, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna make a part 2 of this video too, so don't worry. There is gonna be a way to buy pets, you know, so you don't really have all the pets from the beginning, because that's, you know, that's not too fun. If you just have all the pets, you want to be able to unlock the pets, buy the pets. So I'm gonna show you how to do all of that in part 2. If you're excited for part 2 and you want to see it, then please consider subscribing and like the video, and yeah, maybe let me know in the comments. Let me know any other video suggestions, and my Discord is in the description. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.